debate. Can you try and explain to me why you believe the answer to this is to arm teachers?
Well, the alternative is what we have seen, where people were reduced to waiting to be murdered without being able to do anything effective to protect themselves or the adults to protect the children. So it seems so obvious that since we have concealed carry laws in all of our country now, people can get a concealed firearm, and yet we have laws that say not in schools. And so in the very places that have been sought out by monsters, such as the murder of these adults and children, we're saying, no, we don't want you to be able to defend yourself. It's better that you just sit there and wait to be killed. And we find that morally incomprehensible and deeply disturbing, that the desire to defend life has been so cast aside into whatever political correctness views guns as the ultimate evil. Evil's in our hearts, not in the guns.
Where would the teachers put the guns?
People can carry firearms in a concealed fashion, do it all the time. The laws provide for that.
Wait a minute. So in a school full of 600 children, including 5- and 6-year-olds, you would have teachers walking around armed, carrying the guns on them, where they may possibly fall and allow a 5-year-old to pick it up and possibly misfire it. Is that that's your solution?
People are walking around with guns outside of schools all over our country, and we don't have those kinds of problems. You can always play the what-if game.
But Mr. Pratt, you have enormous problems in this country. You have over 300 million guns. You have 311 million people, many of which are children. You have more than a gun per adult in this country, and you have by far the worst rate of gun murder and gun crime of any of the civilized countries of this world. How can you possibly argue that the answer... I'm asking you this question. How can you argue that the logical... Please stop laughing.
Because you're saying, what is your argument, and then you won't let me make an argument.
I'm going to ask you the question, but if you could stop laughing...
You've already posited the question. Let me answer your question.
I haven't asked you the question.
Repeat it.
My question is this. If you could stop laughing for a moment. It is this. Why do you believe, given that you have 300 million guns in circulation and the worst gun crime rate of any of the civilized countries of the world, that more guns is the answer to less gun murder?
Because the problem occurs, sir, in those areas precisely where we have said no guns. The problem doesn't occur where the guns are allowed freely to be carried, to be used by people. There we have very low murder rates. We have lower murder rates in other parts of the country than even in Europe, than even where you come from. But what has created the problem in the United States is to say in cities, in schools, those are areas where we're not going to allow people to defend themselves.
What is the murder rate in Great Britain for the last 3 years? Do you know, from guns?
It's under 3 per 100,000, and in Fairfax County, where Gun Owners of America is located, it is actually 0.3 per 100,000, about a tenth of what it is in your vaunted English bucolic countryside. The fact of the matter is, with guns comes safety if the guns are in the hands of the good guys. And when you say the good guys can't have guns, the bad guys have a monopoly, and horrible things such as the shooting at the schools take place.
The AR-15, as we've now seen from the last 3 mass shootings in America, Aurora, the shopping mall in Oregon, and now at Sandy Hook School, is the preferred choice of weapon for disturbed young men who want to commit mass atrocity. It can fire hundreds of bullets at rapid speed if you have the right magazines. The President of the United States has indicated he wants to ban assault weapons like this. What is your view?
I think we need to ban gun control laws that keep people from being able to protect themselves. The problem is not going to go away if we ban this or that gun. We've tried that. That doesn't work. Doesn't even work in England. You've had mass murders there. All over Europe there have been mass murders. The solution is for people to be able to defend themselves at the point of the crime and not wait for 20 minutes for the police to come after everybody's dead.
Mr. Pratt, was an absolute lie. The gun murder rate in countries like Britain or Germany or Australia, who've all suffered massacres many years ago of similar nature, have They are 35 people killed a year. Your country is 12,000.
Your murder rate is lower than ours. That is true.
Lower? It's 35 against 12,000.
Your violent crime rate,
they had a massacre,
is higher than ours, as is the violent crime rate in Australia. America is not the Wild West that you are depicting. We only have the problem in our cities and unhappily in our schools, where people like you have been able to get laws put on the books that keep people from being able to defend themselves. I honestly don't understand why you would rather have people be victims of a crime than be able to defend themselves. It's incomprehensible.
You're an unbelievably stupid man, aren't you?
It seems to me that you're morally obtuse. You seem to prefer being a victim to being able to prevail over the criminal element. And I don't know why you want to be the criminal's friend.
What a ridiculous argument. You have absolutely no coherent argument whatsoever. You don't give a damn, do you, about the gun murder rate in America? You don't actually care. All you care about
seems to me that
is the
facts
right
don't bother you, do they, Mr. Morgan?
You would like to see...
Facts don't seem to... They bounce right off of your head.
Let's deal with some facts.
You're speaking oblivious to what we do know is that when you go to an area in the United States where guns are freely available, readily able to be carried legally, there you find our lowest murder rates, lower than the murder rates in Europe. You go to our cities where we have cracked down on guns and people can't defend themselves, and that's where the criminals have a field day.
How many guns did Mrs. Lanza have in her home?
I don't know how many she had, and that really is not the point.
Well,
the point is somebody with evil in his...
She had 6 guns, including 4 assault rifles, and what happened was her deranged son, who clearly was very disturbed.
Her evil son.
It doesn't matter what you call him.
We shouldn't be... Well, I think it matters, because if you believe and understand that there is evil in the world, then you don't try as your first line of defense to solve it psychiatrically. You protect yourself with a gun.
Let me finish my thread there, Mr. Pratt. So you have an evil young man who is living at home, clearly with serious troubles, and his mother has 6 firearms in that house, including the weapons that he used to murder 26 people, including 20 children aged 5. You are quite happy about that situation, are you? And you would be quite happy if there are many more people in his position in homes around America where there are that number of firearms which could be used by mentally unstable people.
Americans with firearms in their homes typically have them locked in a safe, as I do, and as most gun owners certainly do. The fact that this woman did not and knew that her son was unstable reflected poorly on her judgment, and unhappily she paid very dearly for her poor judgment. But that's not the reason that you should be able to come down on everybody else who's a law-abiding gun owner, who uses good sense, and to say, we've got to pay for that person's stupidity, for their shortcomings. That's just not going to wash. We're not going to let it happen, Mr. Morgan.
I'm sure you're not going to try and let it happen. You see, my argument is not about the Americans' right to defend themselves in their home with a firearm. That's not the argument that I'm trying to put out there. My argument is the same as the argument that Senator Feinstein said, that the President endorses, that I believe many, many Americans now believe following this tragedy, which is that there is absolutely no use and no justification for these AR-15 type assault weapons.
On the contrary,
let me finish.
How can you say such a thing?
Let me finish my sentence.
The Korean merchants in Los Angeles use these kinds of firearms to protect their lives and their businesses. And for you to say there's no useful purpose for these guns, that's just completely wrong.
Okay, let me finish my sentence. There are these assault weapons which have been used now in movie theaters, in shopping malls, in elementary schools to murder many, many Americans, and now 25-year-old children. And they are armed with magazines, 30 at a time here, 100 in Aurora in a movie theater. And your only answer, Mr. Pratt, to people that want to get rid of both the magazines and these assault weapons, if I'm not mistaken, is to let everybody else have similar weapons. Is that the solution to America's gun murder problem?
I would challenge you to go and tell the Korean merchants who survived the riots in Los Angeles, Sorry you had those firearms.
Can you answer my question?
Saved your lives. I'm answering your question. I wish you could understand it, because you're talking against self-defense. Would you like to see people being able to protect themselves, and you don't want to hear it. That's why you keep interrupting.
No, I don't mind hearing it. I think it's complete nonsense, but I don't mind hearing it. You would like to
Brits
see...
tend to do that, don't they?
Oh, stop being so facetious. I just want you to answer this one question. Post what happened at Sandy Hook, your answer to this problem of repeated use of this weapon with these high-capacity magazines is to continue letting Americans buy them with impunity and to not concern yourself with these mass shootings. Is that right?
The Second Amendment means what it says, and meanwhile, you want to continue laws against self-defense, laws that prohibit self-defense, laws that prohibit teachers and other faculty, other members of the administration in schools from being able to defend themselves if they have a concealed carry permit. The laws prohibit them right now. We have been lobbying against those laws since they were put on. We will continue to do so, pointing out that that is where the problem is. And for you to support them means that you're really blind to the role that that plays in enabling murderers to operate with impunity.
Yeah, I know why sales of these weapons have been soaring in the last few days. It's down to idiots like you. Mr. Pratt, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for your high-level argument, Mr. Morgan.
You know what?
Really
you wouldn't understand the meaning of the phrase high-level argument. You are a dangerous man espousing dangerous nonsense. And
disarmament is dangerous. Ask Neville Chamberlain, your role model.
Yeah, sure. I know all about role models, and you're not one of them. When we come back, two members of Congress who've experienced gun violence and what they want to do to make sure it never happens to anybody